Donald Trump continues to insult his Hispanic and Latin voters, including those in Florida and those of the proud Venezuelan and Haitian community. And a federal judge in San Francisco has said enough and has used the very words Donald Trump has used to attack people, those proud people in the Venezuelan and Haitian community, has used his words against him. And those of Kristi Noem, who calls everybody scum. Donald Trump, who says everybody comes from a shithole country and they all should be deported, has used it against them in a new nationwide injunction that's been issued by Judge Chen out of San Francisco to stop Kristi Noem and the Trump administration from revoking the temporary protective status for over 600,000 Venezuelans, half of which were set to expire in the next couple of days. Not so fast, says Judge Chen. You, the Trump administration, you just violated the Administrative Procedures Act, and the dripping in animus and discrimination and racial hatred that your statement suggests says to me that I got to look closer at your decision to try to revoke temporary protective status. And I also find that the Homeland Security Director does not have the inherent authority to revoke the status once it was extended by the Biden administration and Secretary Mayorkas. I'll break it down for you, including all the things that Trump and Noem said that went into the decision here on Legal AF. Let's jump into it. So, temporary protective status was formed about 35 years ago to protect temporarily people from war-torn countries, civil strife countries, and those that have natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, and the like. Venezuelans and Haitians are not the only people. 17 different countries are here under temporary protective status. And the thing the judge wanted to also let everybody know in his 70 or 80-page decision is based on data from amicus briefs, friends of the court briefs that were filed. These are hard-working people that contribute to the national economy, that have jobs. They're here. These are not undocumented. These are not members of Chen de Agua criminal narco-terrorist gang. Okay? These are hardworking people trying to obtain the American dream. They own homes. They're here with their families. They want to turn their temporary protective status into permanent status, into green card, into H-1B status. That's the group we're talking about. But Kristi Noem, because it's politically expedient, along with Donald Trump, conflate these groups together and malign them. I know hardworking and proud Venezuelans personally. I live in Florida. I've lived here for years before I had this little sojourn up in New Jersey. Doral, which is where the Trump golf course is, has so many proud Venezuelans working there, hardworking Venezuelans working there, that it's known as Doralzuela. Weston was also previously known as Westonzuela. You drive around Florida, and these are all voters. This is why Donald Trump hates his own voters. And why they don't hold him accountable, I don't know. Let me just say this straight to the camera. If you are black, brown, or white, Hispanic, or Latin, Donald Trump does not like you. He does not want to sit down with you. He just wants your vote. But he does nothing to help you. And he thinks you're vile. Donald Trump, as reported in Judge Chen's decision, which I'm going to read to you, has frequently said out loud, and Kristi Noem followed it, that countries like Venezuela just opened their jails and mental hospitals and sent them all to America. Is that how you feel about yourself? Is that how you feel about your friends that emigrated from another country? The proud Venezuelan group. The judge reminded everybody that Venezuelans have higher educational attainment, more bachelor's degrees, percentage-wise, higher percentage working, more paying taxes, and less crime than the general American population. That's why this fake cover story that they're trying to get rid of, and talk about talking out of both sides of your mouth. On one hand, the Trump administration, in order to kidnap and deport people without due process to the dark, dank, killer jails of El Salvador, say that the Venezuelan government, led by Maduro since 2013, is really a corrupt, organized crime, captured government, captured by the narco-terrorists that run Tren de Aragua, TDA. That's on one hand. The State Department similarly says it's a Category 4 country. Do not visit. Do not travel. You will get killed or kidnapped. That's on one hand. On the other hand, they're saying we don't need temporary protective status for the Venezuelans anymore because it's the civil strife is over. They can go home. It's safe. It's safe to go home. Which is it, Trump administration? Is it a criminally organized government that's corrupted and taken over by narco-terrorists that the State Department says I'm going to get killed or kidnapped in? Or is it safe and idyllic place to return to and go home? And that's the function, that's the analysis that the judge used in finding three likelihoods of success here by the plaintiffs that brought this case. One, that they're likely to succeed at the end of the case to prove that the decision 4 days into her term as Homeland Security Director, a whole 4 days, is the very definition of arbitrary and capricious, which violates the Administrative Procedures Act. You can't act arbitrary and capricious. You got to have data. You got to have reasoned decisions. You got to have analysis. You got to have deep thought. You can't do it in 4 days because you don't like the color of their skin or you think they're scum, which the judge repeats. That's one. Judge also found, based on the statements that were made about you're scum, you're all gang members, we got to get murderers off the street. Donald Trump saying in the past that these people like the Haitians and Venezuelans come from shithole countries shows that it is animus and racial discrimination based, and it violates equal protection under the law guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution if you reside here in America. That's a little known fact. Little known to the Trump administration. Constitution applies to people on our soil, even if they're not U.S. citizens. You have First Amendment rights. You have constitutional rights, even if you're here undocumented, even if you're here on temporary protective status. The judge reminded them of that. And lastly, the judge said it is more likely than not that they're going to be able to prove, the plaintiffs, that Kristi Noem did not have the inherent authority to reverse the decision by her predecessor, Mayorkas, for Biden, who extended the temporary protective status for another year to give these people more time. The reason for the extension, frankly, if you want to look at dignified, humane immigration policy, is to give these hardworking, tax-paying, no criminal group of proud people time to get more permanent status. So they go from temporary to permanent. Maybe that's an H-1B visa because they have a certain specialty or skill. Maybe they have enough money so they can do an E or entrepreneurial visa, which requires a certain amount of investment or to buy a business or employ people. Maybe they can get it through political asylum because they really were beaten and almost killed by the Maduro regime. 7 million people since 2013 fled the Maduro regime. Does that sound like it's the Garden of Eden? Or does it sound like it's the fourth ring of hell that we're sending people back to? So let me read to you from the judge's decision, just so you know where I'm coming from. He sums it up in his introduction. And so I'm going to read kind of verbatim from it, starting on page 1. This is Judge Chen, San Francisco, another San Francisco federal judge. There's been several of them that have stepped forward to protect our rule of law, Judge Chen being one of them. At issue is whether this court should temporarily postpone actions by Kristi Noem, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, taken against over 600,000 Venezuelan nationals who have legal status to reside and work temporarily in the U.S. Again, they have status. They are not undocumented. They are not members of the Tren de Aragua criminal gang. The Secretary's actions will strip nearly 350,000 of these residents from protection under the Temporary Protected Status Program, TPS, which has been around since the 90s, and send them back to Venezuela. Here, listen to this comment by the judge. A country so rife with economic and political upheaval and danger that the U.S. State Department has categorized Venezuela as a level 4 do not travel country because you could get kidnapped because of terrorism, wrongful detention, civil unrest, and poor health infrastructure. This unprecedented action, has never been done in 35 years of the program's existence, says the judge. On page 2, now we're turning to stereotypes and racism and animus, which is the focus of the judge's ire. Although the Secretary's actions appear predicated on negative stereotypes, casting class-wide aspersions on their character, insinuating that they, the Venezuelans here under TPS, were released from Venezuelan prisons and mental health facilities and imposed huge financial burdens on local communities. The undisputed record, that's interesting. The Trump administration and DOJ didn't even try to dispute these facts. The undisputed record establishes the Venezuelan TPS beneficiaries, in fact, have higher education attainment, almost 50% have a bachelor's degree, have higher labor participation, up to 96% work, earn nearly all their income in the United States, 96%, and contribute billions with a B of dollars to the U.S. economy and pay hundreds, if not billions of dollars to Social Security taxes. They have lower rates of criminality than the general U.S. population, less criminals in their population than the general U.S. population. The judge went on to say that he was granting the nationwide injunction. The court finds on page 3 that the secretary's actions threatens to inflict irreparable harm on hundreds of thousands of persons whose lives, families, and livelihoods will be severely disrupted, cost the United States billions in economic activity. Is this a time for us to lose billions in economic activity and tax collection while Donald Trump is playing fast and loose with our economy on the global stage with tariffs, cutting off U.S. contribution to state economies through cutting off billions of dollars in funding? Is this now a time to lose the Venezuelans as contributors to our society? I think not. And injure public health and safety in communities throughout the United States. At the same time, the government has failed to identify any real countervailing harm in continuing the status for the beneficiaries. It was arbitrary and capricious, the judge said, and unconstitutional animus was at its root. Now, in particular, let me read to you from the discriminatory statements that the judge relies on made by Kristi, Noem, and Donald Trump, including eating cats and dogs that came up in the debates, didn't get past Judge Chen. Now this is the section where the judge says, have they shown that there is racial discrimination and animus and a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution, 14th Amendment? Yes. And here's his examples. He said, Kristi, Noem on February 28th, 2024, this is on page 64 of his order, said, Venezuelans didn't send us their best. That's a lie. They emptied their prisons and sent criminals to America. That is a Trump canard and trope about mental hospitals and prisons and shithole countries, which ended up in Kristi Noem's mouth. Testimony during her January 15th testimony before Congress, in which she said, this is on page 65, the TPS program has been abused and manipulated by the Biden administration, including sending us 600,000 Venezuelans, including in Colorado, with gangs doing damage and harming the individuals and the people that live here. Again, for political expediency and laziness, conflating true criminals in this country with the proud Venezuelan community. Proud Venezuelan community that's here legally and has voting rights, and the Haitian community, and any Latin community. Stand up for your brothers and sisters at the time of polling. See that this guy is corrupt and racist against you. I can't say it in any other clearer fashion than that. Let me continue. Here comes the dirtbags comment. On a statement on January 29, 2025, in an interview on Fox before she was even confirmed, she said, and I quote, listen, this is on page 65, Kristi Noem, I was in New York City yesterday and the people of this country want these dirt bags out. Talking about Venezuelans. That was the headline. She said it similarly on February 2nd on Meet the Press. The TPP program, it's actually the TPS program, has been abused. And folks from Venezuela that have come into this country are members of TDA. So now all Venezuelans are members of a narco-terrorist drug gang. And remember, Venezuela purposely emptied out their prisons, emptied out their mental health facilities, and sent them to the United States of America. Again, let me remind you, the judge credited and the Trump administration did not refute that the Venezuelans in this country under TPS work harder with a college degree, pay more taxes, and commit less crime than Americans do. I'm just saying. More importantly, it's the basis for the judge's decision. He then went on the discriminatory statements of President Trump, as long as we're there, including going back as far as 2018 on page 66, when he said, we're protecting immigrants from Haiti, El Salvador, and African countries. And why do all these people from shithole countries have to come here? That was President of the United States, Donald Trump. All right. And the reason Haiti is connected here is because the judge has also invited the plaintiffs group to bring a similar application. He'll grant it to stop Haitians from being deported and having their TPS violated. And then, of course, he gets to the eating cats and dogs, eating the pets of the people that live in Springfield, Ohio. These people, this is on page 67, are drug dealers. They come into this country. They're going to kill you. They come out of the slums and prisons of Caracas. I mean, I don't know if people didn't realize this is what he says out loud, but this is what he says out loud. And the judge has said, I am now ordering that this stop today. It is so ordered. Let me read to you from the order and its ramifications. For the foregoing reasons, on page 77, the court grants plaintiff's motion to postpone the actions taken by Secretary of Noem, specifically her decision to vacate the extension of the 2023 designations. Within 1 week of this order, the party shall file a joint status report addressing whether the government intends to appeal this order. Oh, they'll appeal the order. Whether plaintiffs will be filing a motion to postpone with respect to agency action related to Haitians. And this order disposes of a couple of other items. Signed March 31st, Edward M. Chen. I'm going to continue to follow it, including the inevitable appeal notice up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California and San Francisco also, and likely off to the United States Supreme Court, right here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. Take a moment. You're here. If you like this kind of content that we're curating here at the intersection of law and politics, hit the subscribe button. Till my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.